Hello and welcome back to the Homeschool Library. Brad here, and as always, glad to have you aboard. So I wanted to release this video yesterday, but we are in stock for the great winter storm of 2026, which is rolling in right now. That's why we're doing this from a slightly different location this morning, as the wind is howling out there. I ran out of time yesterday because, work and grocery shopping. My daughter had dance class, my son had basketball practice, and then just going around the farm, battening down the hatches for the storm rolling in today. I ran out of time. I didn't get it done. So today, I would like to offer a day late, a very hearty and happy birthday to the great Robert E. Howard. 120 years. 90 of those years we have lived without his life and continued writings, whatever output he may have been able to put out in his later life. But just in that short 30-year lifespan that he was here with us on this earth, he put out one of the great literary legacies in the American canon. Honestly, not just one of the greatest pulp writers, arguably the greatest pulp writer, depending on who you ask. I think one of the great American authors. Heck, I'll say it, one of the great authors, really. I don't care what genre we're talking, what language we're talking, where in the world you're coming from. Robert E. Howard is one of the most consistently entertaining authors that has ever put pen to page. He really is. I've always been a huge fan since the first things that I picked up. I don't remember what the first Howard story that I ever read was. It was probably a Conan story. That's the gateway to most people, I think. I think there's actually a lot of people out there, if they know Howard at all, it's because of Conan. One of those characters that has really kind of overshadowed their creator. But he had so many great characters in his fiction. Cull, Cormac Fitzgeoffrey, Bran MacMorn, Breckinridge Elkins, so many more. James Allison, you name it. And even outside his kind of series characters that he wrote about more often, just his regular genre fiction, whatever he may be writing, whether the historical adventures or his attempt in the Sword and Planet genre, or his westerns, which I'm a huge fan of. That's why I bought this set. Actually, this was published. This is a 5-volume set that came out in the early 2000s, about the same time that the Del Rey Howard collection was coming out. These were put out, by the University of Nebraska Press. I want to say like 2003, 2005. Thereabouts, 5 volumes, 2 of which are exclusively devoted to his westerns, his western output. The other volume, and I've showcased these books in a video last fall for Sumerian September. The other volume is, I think it's called The Riot at Bucksnort, which is his more humorous western tales, like the Breckinridge Elkins, Pike Bearfield stories. This one is more of his standard Western fare. If anything Howard wrote could be considered standard fare. And I picked this volume to showcase today specifically because one of the stories in here is called The Last Ride. And a little bit of background on The Last Ride. The Last Ride was originally a story by another pulp author of the time. His name is Chandler Whipple. He wrote often under the name Robert Enders Allen. And in 1935, Whipple had a story that he was working on that for whatever reason, he couldn't bring it around to a satisfying conclusion. He had a great start, great outline, but just whether it was writer's block or what, he couldn't bring it home. So his editor, who I think was Otis Adelbert Klein, brought that story to Robert E. Howard and asked him to finish it, rework it if necessary, but just finish it out. The meat of the story was there, and it just needed finished. So Howard did. He reworked it, resubmitted it, and it was published in the, I think it was 1935 issue of Western Aces as Boot Hill Payoff, which is a great title. I wish they would have kept that. And Robert Enders Allen got the main byline, and I think it was also like with Robert E. Howard. Nobody knows for sure how much of the story is Howard and how much was Robert Enders Allen. But I think there's a really good mix in there. It doesn't feel entirely like a Howard story, but there's definitely Howard in there. You can really feel his voice coming out. It's a great story about a younger brother of this outlaw band who he's trying to redeem his family name after his brothers kind of dragged it through the mud in their life of crime and violence. It's a great story. It really is. I enjoyed it a lot. And back in 2020, I did a thing. Some of you might remember, if you've been following this channel for a while, not that it's been around all that long, but I mentioned a couple of times that I am the narrator for Wild West Podcast, which is a true history Western podcast dealing mostly with Dodge City and Southwest Kansas, which is our home base, but kind of Western history across the board. It's been very popular over the last 6-7 years that we've been doing it. 8 years, actually, the podcast has been running. Back in 2020, when everybody was stuck at home for reasons that shall not be named, I thought it would be fun to try my hand at releasing an audiobook. We already had a built-in audience for the podcast, and I thought, this is going to be a great way to kind of shoehorn in there to see if I can pull it off just as a special extra episode. We released the audiobook in chapters, so 9 episodes in all, and I'm going to drop the link for that down below. I think celebrating Robert E. Howard's birthday is a great time to re-release that. And I just want to show my attempt at this. I've listened to it a couple of times over the years since. I know I could do better. And maybe someday I'd like to try my hand at improving it, maybe with another Robert E. Howard story. But, if I was ever going to do an audiobook, who better than Robert E. Howard? I already had a passion for him as an author, so I was hoping that I could translate that through in my vocal performance. Again, your mileage may vary on what you think of it. I'm pretty proud of how it turned out. Again, I know I can do better. Maybe someday I'll give it another shot, but I'm going to drop the link to that down below. Give it a listen if you get a chance. A comment below. I'd love to know what you think about The Last Ride by Robert E. Howard, as read by Brad Smalley of the Homeschool Library, even though that didn't exist back then. It does now, so I'm going to link it here. Let me know what you think. Stay warm this weekend if you are in the path of this big winter storm. If you got to hunker down, maybe read yourself some Robert E. Howard. Give the audiobook a listen. I hope you get some reading done. And again, stay warm, stay dry. We'll see you next time. Brad out.